Hello and welcome to the Podquest of Bread. My name is Henry Conley. Tonight I want to talk about the left. And I know I've covered this topic a few times on this podcast, discussing the difference between what American politics views as the left and what the left actually is. But I bring the topic up again because something happened that was pretty impressive last night. And it was a very impressive primary election win out of Massachusetts, where the Nancy Pelosi kiss of death endorsement of Joe Kennedy III and the AOC-backed Ed Markey went head-to-head in a primary. And Nancy Pelosi's kiss of death, well, it seems like it caused Mr. Kennedy to lose his primary. In fact, the first Kennedy to lose an election in the state of Massachusetts in the family's dynasty. In their political dynasty, they have never lost an election in Massachusetts. But here we have a somewhat progressive, AOC-backed Markey beating out Nancy Pelosi's chosen candidate. Of course, Donald Trump is using this as a way to he's capitalizing on this, and he's using it as a way to talk about how the Democratic Party has gone too far left. I can't say that without laughing because, man, if only it was actually left. But about 8 hours ago on Twitter, Donald Trump put up, when a Kennedy loses a Democrat primary in Massachusetts by a lot, it just shows how far left that party has gone. He said Joe Biden, because, he's always got to make nicknames up to remember people, will never be able to hold them back. Life, second day, energy, religion, jobs, and the economy would be totally obliterated. I don't know where to begin picking apart this statement, but I'm going to kind of dance around on it a little bit here and have a little fun with this. The first thing is, Kennedy losing, that doesn't show how far left the party has gone. I mean, overall, the party is not leftist. Yes, there's some people who are leftists within the Democratic Party. You got people like AOC, that she's a leftist. You got people like Markey, who lean progressive. They sort of lean leftist. They got a little bit sketchy of a history. But overall, the party is still very much a corporate Democratic Party. Overall, if you were to strip away the name Democrat and take the platform, about 90% of it, and drop it into a Republican circle, Republicans would love it. They'd flock for it. I mean, it's almost the same as 90% of the Republican platform. But Trump's got to keep pushing this lie about them going left. I mean, he links this lie into the anarchists, the agitators. He links it into the whole talk about who's looting and burning down the cities. So this is all part of his carefully crafted plan. So what he's saying is, Joe Biden, if he wins the presidency, would be controlled by the left and wouldn't be able to hold the left back. Second Amendment would be gone. Okay. In general, the left supports the Second Amendment. Many of us support it as written. Many of us do like our guns. Many of us would just like to be a little safer about it. Responsibility. It's pretty simple. Be responsible, and you're good. Yeah, sure, there are some people on the left who would like to see some limitations on what you can buy, magazine limitations, a little bit more of a waiting period for a gun, things like that. Somewhat common sense. He goes on to say, life. I'm trying to figure out what part of a leftist pushing a conversation. I'm trying to figure out what part of a leftist gaining office or maintaining office would cause life to disappear. Leftists, we value life. It's why we want something like Medicare for all. It's why we want something that guarantees health care for people, because health care is a fundamental right of your life, and it's a fundamental way to keep you, alive. Leftists, we're not against life. I'm going to guess this has some sort of correlation to abortion, maybe? The fact that leftists generally, we view that a woman's right to her body is hers, and what she does with her reproductive health is her decision. I'm going to guess that's kind of what he's getting at here. I'm not 100% sure there. But when you look at leftists and you look at what we stand for, we want people to be able to get food. We want them to have water. We want them to have health care. We want them to have education. We don't want them to have to worry about losing the roof over their heads. These are very humanity and life-driven ideas. So to even try and claim that leftists, your life would disappear is kind of odd. Maybe the only people that their lives would be fundamentally impacted by a leftist being in would be, the corporations and the billionaires that are out there. He goes on to say energy. Well, yeah, leftists, we want a change in energy. We want renewable energy. We want the climate to not get to the point where in 2030, it's irreversible, the damages we've done to it. We want to be able to live. We want our families to be able to live. Kids to be able to live. We want to give a planet. So if that means changing our energy sources to renewable energy sources, what's wrong with that? It becomes expensive for the corporations, and the corporations lose millions of dollars because they got to retrofit all their plants that are producing dirty energy to produce clean energy. How can I forget? It's all about the corporations and the dollar, not the earth. Religion. This one's a funny one for me, coming from the President of the United States, trying to say that leftists are going to get rid of religion or something like that. Leftists, we're the ones that push for people to have the most freedom with their religion. When you look at the Republican Party, generally, if you say one term in front of them, they shriek Islam. So that will cause every one of them to have practically a heart attack. And that's all I'm going to say about this. Religion, under leftists, it's not going anywhere. It's not disappearing. It's just not. Jobs in the economy. Well, jobs, yeah, we want you to have a living wage. We want you to be able to freaking afford to live. We don't want you to be slaving away for endless hours per week while you could be enjoying your life if you had the chance to actually retain the wealth of your labor. And sure, for the corporations and the millionaires, the economy might look a lot different. But of course, Donald Trump always talks about the economy because him and his cultists and the people that he panders to, they think like the Dow Jones is a perfect representation of our economy doing great. They think that the stock market somehow represents the country moving forward in a great way. But when you actually look at it, the Dow Jones closed at 29,000 today. The stock market's doing pretty damn good. But look at the economy. Stock markets and the Dow Jones have no bearing on the actual economy. The economy of the United States is tanking. We are practically in a depression thanks to this guy. This economy sucks. Millions unemployed, millions facing eviction, millions not knowing how to afford to be able to feed themselves, millions having to make decisions whether they're going to eat or pay a bill, millions having to try and find 1, 2, 3 extra jobs just to make ends meet. Yeah, this economy sucks. And it's a direct correlation to the things Donald Trump's been doing. He goes on to say that all this stuff would be totally obliterated. No, it's not going to be totally obliterated. But I want to get back to the root of this whole thing. Donald Trump is trying to say, he's said multiple times, Biden's a leftist, Harris is a leftist. You hear it come out of his supporters that they're Marxists, that they're socialists, that they're communists. You hear it come out of them that they're going to, implement a single-payer health system, or they're going to do this, that, and the other thing, these leftist causes. They're not. Biden and Harris are corporate Democrats. Joe Kennedy III lost because he's a corporate Democrat, and the people that typically might have flocked to him because he was younger didn't like what he had to say. Ed Markey was saying the things we want to hear, Green New Deal, Medicare for All, the things that we want, helping us get better pay. That's what his supporters that were part of the progressive movement and were younger That's what they want. So of course he won the primary, because he's talking the language, and that should serve as a lesson to the DNC as a whole. See, the Democratic Party needs to understand this. The reason that earlier this week there was a vote to start something called the People's Party was because so many people that have been within the DNC and trying to push the DNC to take up leftist causes, they're tired of even begging the DNC to. They're tired of asking the DNC to. Trump and Trump's supporters do not understand this. The DNC is a corporate system. They support corporations. They support millionaires and billionaires. That's just how they are. They pander to them. They'll give leftists a little pat on the head, like, hey, yeah, we'll look into that. You know, Green New Deal, yeah, we'll look into that. Yeah, Medicare for all, we'll look into that. We'll have a discussion on that. And then they let the dust settle and they keep on doing what they do. Biden, Harris, they've supported endless wars. Biden, he's a segregationalist. That guy has supported more racially horrific things than I can ever even imagine to fill into a short time slot like what I do with this show. Harris, she's locked up black people like crazy. She's just like any other typical cop. They're not in favor of giving us Medicare or, you know, any sort of single-payer health system. They're not in favor of the Green New Deal. They could care less if millions of people are homeless, and they could care less about making sure people have the ability to access clean water or food. They could care less about making sure that the worker has their needs met, because as long as they're pandering to their corporate sponsors, that's all they care about. Donald Trump is creating this image. But the problem is, this image is not fitting of the people he's trying to pin it onto. And that's where we need to be very loud about this. See, the Ed Markey winning the primary gives me hope to what a progressive-backed candidate can do, whether or not they're in the DNC. It just so happens that Ed Markey's in the DNC. There was no alternative in his view. This is what gives me hope. 2021, the People's Party. There's good chance that progressive-backed candidates can succeed massively in that party because they're talking the language that people want to hear. They're talking about truly leftist ideals. And people who weren't leftists before the pandemic are becoming leftists now because they're seeing the cracks in the foundation that is capitalism. They're seeing the cracks in the foundation that is what this country was built on. They're seeing the flaws and the errors and all the problems with this country's systems surface at one time. So, of course, now is the best time ever to succeed and to gain these things that we want as progressive people, as leftists, and as socialists, communists, or whatever you may be. This is the time. 2021, 2022, 2023, those are going to be major building and foundational points for the People's Party to gain attraction, to get people into local and state level offices, and in 2024, hopefully make a major change in the American political system. By then, if the Republicans want to talk about leftists, they'll have an actual leftist organization to reference on. By then, hopefully, the American public will understand what leftist is and what a leftist is not. Hopefully, by then, the American public will understand that the Democrats, they're on the right side. They're on the right of the political spectrum. I promise this is I'm hoping this will be the last time I have to give this education. I know that I probably will, again, have to at some point. But hopefully, this whole situation in Massachusetts is a sign of a change and a shift in the political spectrum or the political systems of the United States. Until tomorrow night, stay beautiful, people.